Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Strathfield Council's inauguration of newly elected councillors. And I just wish to remind everyone that this is a COVID-safe event, and I would really encourage you to leave your mask on, please. And of course, the social distancing is sort of like given now. If you need any help during the course of the occasion, please look to one of our staff, and they will be more than pleased to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a formal event, so I would like you to acknowledge it by your presence at this very, very important occasion. And also, please remain seated and not mingle, please, because that is really important for us to ensure that we keep it safe. Ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce our newly elected councillors a little bit later. However, though, in order for proceedings to begin, I would like to invite Mr. David Watts, the Executive Director of our Aboriginal Heritage Office, to acknowledge country. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. I haven't done one of these for a while because usually my education officer doesn't, but I've been the manager for the Aboriginal Heritage Office for 23 years. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands this event is held on, the Wongal people. They occupied these lands for thousands of years. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the elders, past, present and emerging. Thanks.
I want to also acknowledge that we are meeting on what always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and pay respects to their elders past and present. And thank you, David, for doing us the honours today. David came out of holiday to acknowledge country for us this morning. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the community of Strathfield have spoken. On the 4th of December, the community of Strathfield, the electors of Strathfield, went to the polls. And following the election process, which seems to be a long time that it took for the polls to be declared, we have 7 councillors elected through that process. I would like to acknowledge and welcome each of the councillors in turn, if I may. Although it's not in the program, I didn't put it in the program because I thought you might get a bit nervous. So, first of all, returning councillor, Councillor Karen Pennsylvania. And if you could just give them... Returning councillor, Councillor Nella Hall. New councillor, Councillor Sandy Reedy. Returning councillor, Councillor Matthew Gary Blackmore. New councillor, Benjamin Chai. Second time councillor, Councillor Raj Datta. And the most difficult name of all to pronounce, I left last for some reason, is new councillor, Mr. Sharangan Mahes Warren. Welcome. I had sleepless nights worrying about pronouncing that name. And with the mask on, it's really difficult to speak. And someone reminded me yesterday that I was some sort of a respiratory patient, just got out of bed. But that's not the case. The mask, I'm sure you all hate it. And when you have to speak like this, it's really difficult. And of course, ladies and gentlemen in Cyberland, welcome to our ceremony. And I would like to, on behalf of everyone here, thank you for your attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a number of two very, very special speakers arranged for this morning, and their gracious acceptance is really, really appreciated, not only just by me, hopefully by all the newly elected councillors as well. The person that doesn't require any introduction at all. He's a gentleman I've known since 1991. He's a gentleman that helped me along the way in relation to things that needed to be advocated at different levels of government. A gentleman that I served with on community organisations, in particular as a councillor on the Penshurst Primary School. And Morris, you may not recall this, but back in the day, we said the facilities there needed to be improved. As councillors, we were pretty active in trying to get things done there. The other night, I had to drive past it to go to Riverwood because a colleague of mine was feeling unwell, so I wanted to make sure that they had access to the rat test. And how proud was I when I saw the building and reminded ourselves of the time we spent as councillors, as volunteers, at that little school, which is a nothing school by other people's measures, but to us it was a little important school. So, and ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more about what Morris does, well, he's a renewable energy advocate. He's a warrior for renewable energy in an industrial scale, as I understand it. And not only that, but the pages of Google is filled with his bio, so I don't want to bore you with what I know. I just want to tell you my personal experience. He is the most unpolitical politician I know within the political class. He is a native gentleman. I can say that because I have experienced it for myself. He's also a guy who doesn't mind, who has the courage to ask questions. If we question tough questions, he'll be asked. He's a man with integrity, and we are really sorry that we have lost him to politics, but I'm sure he was doing fantastically well in relation to the renewable space. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Honourable Mr. Morris Iemma, the 40th Premier of New South Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, for that very generous introduction and rundown of my CV. I've never forgotten Penshurst Primary School. I've never also forgotten the Hurstville Aquatic Centre and so many other projects that we worked on in those days when I was a backbench MP for Hurstville. When Henry mentions Penshurst Primary School, and primary schools, like secondary schools, are a direct responsibility of the state government, but that little anecdote, that little example, is an example of the power also of local government. Whilst an issue that is not directly within its jurisdiction, the expertise that local government has among its staff. Henry, in those days, was chief engineer at Hurstville. I think they called it the chief engineer. It's got a different title these days. But there were project managers, contract managers, engineers, architects, a great pool of skill to assist state MPs, federal MPs, to assist and to collaborate with the other levels of government to improve infrastructure and improve services. And it is a really good small example of the value of local government, its important role in our three levels of government and our system of democracy. Penshurst Primary now is a very modern school with all of the modern services and infrastructure that parents and students and teachers would expect, would demand, and absolutely need for a quality education. And it wouldn't stand there today as a multi-storey school that was landlocked and couldn't expand outwards and could only go up, and was front and centre in a debate that was raging at the time and still rages in communities across the greater metropolitan area of Sydney. The challenge of population growth, the challenge of change in local communities and providing services and infrastructure to match the growth and meeting current needs and future needs. And Penshurst Primary is doing that, and the challenges in Hurstville, or now Georges River, are no different to the challenges that you face here in Strathfield and across the greater metropolitan area when it comes to population growth, to change and to meeting the needs, the service needs and the infrastructure needs of local communities. Can I thank David Watt for the welcome to country and also acknowledge the traditional owners and pay my respects to elders current, emerging in that acknowledgement to country that David gave us. Picking up on those themes, I firstly want to congratulate the incumbent councillors that were re-elected, no mean feat, and to the new councillors that have been elected, also no mean feat. I think the first point that I do want to make is that we can often take our democratic process for granted. We know that in this state our elections are fixed, and often we can take that for granted and not really take a step back and think just how fortunate we are that we are a liberal, democratic and free society, that we do have our challenges. Our democratic system is often tested. At times it frustrates us, at times it angers us. But we only have to look at our television screens at night, scroll social media and find many examples across the world, and you can see one happening right now in relation to areas of the former Soviet Union where democracy is often under threat and freedoms are under threat. The existence of political parties and opposition candidates, and indeed even candidates and MPs that are part of a ruling government, don't have and are often punished in the most severe form for their beliefs and their stances. And when they do challenge governments, when they do challenge incumbents, and we are very fortunate that our Constitution and our institutions, the rule of law, our parliamentary democracy, an independent judiciary and an independent police force in the states and federally, are the bulwarks of our free and democratic society. And the last series of council elections were, in my view, a really good expression of that, because those elections that were complete on December 4 took place in unprecedented circumstances. And it's easy, again, just to say, well, they've come, they've gone, that's great, we've got a new council, we swear in the new councillors and away we go back to business. A pandemic that has cost the lives of millions throughout the world had a very severe impact on our democracy. The elections were put off. This term that the councillors are being sworn in is going to be a shortened term because of the challenges that the pandemic has thrown up. The rules around what candidates could do changed, and in many instances the interpretation of those rules inhibited candidates. The free expression of political views, the dissemination of information, a lot of those rights were curtailed. Voices could still be heard, material could still be distributed, but there were quite strong restrictions. Let alone the impact on the voters, on the constituents. Voting in a pandemic, when there are rules around distancing, rules on masks, and other rules and guidelines, and where there is genuine anxiety, if not at times fear, in the community, what sort of impact that would have on our democratic system. I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised, and I think it's an outstanding tribute to the strength of our democracy and the strength of democracy in local government at the grassroots level in communities, that the turnout was 85% in the middle of a pandemic. I believe that is an extraordinary result and is testament to the strength of our democracy and the value that people place on their right to express their political views and to exercise their right in that ballot box. We have compulsory voting, but compulsory voting in a pandemic should not yield a turnout of 85%. And it is a testament, I say, to the strength of democracy and to the courage of individual members of the community and to the participants in the political process that we got to 85% turnout. So it was a wonderful, wonderful turnout, and as I say, a tribute to everybody involved and everyone that participated. Also wanted to say that for Stratfield Council, I want to congratulate the council and tribute. Now, I'm not sure as to how many of the current councillors participated, but I'm sure if they didn't participate in an official capacity as councillors and mayor, I'm sure that as members of the community they participated in a campaign to retain your identity. And that identity is fundamental to your community and fundamental to the shape of your council and what it does. Communities do have, suburbs do have their own identity, their own historical significance, their own cultural outlook, their own views and attitudes. And they are important when those suburbs make up a community and it has a council. And it's not necessarily a case that big is better. It's not necessarily the case that trying to construct local government authorities the size of state governments are going to lead to better outcomes in terms of identity, in terms of giving expression to the will of a community and into delivering better infrastructures and services and lowering costs and being more efficient. I happen to live in the local government area now of Canterbury-Bankstown. I live in a suburb called Narwee, which is divided between Georges River, the old Hurstville, where I first met and worked with Henry, now Georges River. And on the other side of the suburb that I live in is Canterbury-Bankstown, an amalgamation of Canterbury and the old Bankstown. The Canterbury-Bankstown LGA is an authority the size of, in terms of its budget, of the Government of Tasmania, and a population not far short of that. And there are many wonderful people who work at Canterbury-Bankstown Council and every day doing their best, imparting their skills and their expertise to deliver good services and good infrastructure. I do have to say that as a 50-plus year resident of Narwee with its own peculiarities, it's not necessarily, in my view, a good thing that bigger has been better for those of us living in Narwee, in the old Canterbury part. In many parts of the old council that I live in, people feel that it's been more of a takeover than an amalgamation. So I'm historically, given the issues, without entering a political debate, focusing purely on community issues and debates, I think given the history of Stratfield and its history, its traditions, its cultural outlooks and the peculiar features, the idiosyncrasies, and indeed the sorts of things that have brought Stratfield to light in Sydney. Its wonderful streetscapes, its diversity in architecture and in dwelling type, from Victorian to Federation, California bungalow, to the interwar period architectural designs, to the more contemporary designs. Stratfield does occupy a particular place in the landscape of communities in Greater Sydney, and it's good that is retained with its own local authority to preserve its identity and to continue meeting the needs of local communities. I mentioned the pandemic and the impact that it had in physically voting, in us being able to exercise our democratic rights and the elections actually taking place. The pandemic, in my view, has also been a very good example. It's highlighted, in another respect, the value and the power of local government. As we entered lockdown, and in some places curfew, and at Narwee I was in lockdown and curfew, it highlighted the very important role that at times is overlooked, and the powerful role that local government authorities can play in a crisis like a pandemic. In my area, once we went into lockdown and the curfews came and the infection rates exploded and the death rates rose as well, local government filled a vacuum in bringing the community leaders together, filled a vacuum in disseminating information about what to do to protect yourself, played a vital role, a fundamental role in lifting vaccination rates, in using its infrastructure and facilities for mass vaccination centres, mass testing centres. There were times where the local council, in mobilising community leaders, literally street by street into households where English was not the first language, in getting vital life-saving information and action. And it was not unique to Canterbury or Canterbury Bankstown. This happened right across Sydney, and councils played a vital, and I have to say, life-saving role in that crisis period that we went through between June and October. And council, local government will continue to play a role, and a fundamental role, as we deal with the current crisis and as we will deal with variants this year, later this year, next year and beyond. Mutations and variants will be with us for the next few years, and in that, local government, the closest level of government, the closest layer of government to communities and to individuals, is fundamental in meeting those challenges. I want to conclude my address in wishing all of the councillors and the staff of the magnificent leadership of Henry all the very best in these very challenging times, and wish that you'll continue to maintain your identity and discharge those public responsibilities with integrity and probity and intelligence and passion and commitment. I've felt some of that passion and commitment this morning in some of the exchanges I've had with members of the audience, and it's great that people do feel passionate and get involved in their local council and local issues. So that's the incubator of our democracy, grassroots communities and government at the most local level. Public office and public service is the most noble of callings. I often am asked, do you miss state politics? And prior to that, I worked in Canberra in one capacity. And if so, what do you miss? For me, and I'm sure this applies to most people that serve in public office, being in public office provides you with a unique opportunity to shape communities and influence people's lives at the local government level far more than state and federal. Public office and public duty, to my mind, allows for the intellectual stimulation and the opportunity to fundamentally shape a community and improve people's quality of lives, much more so than the other levels of government and much more so than other forms of employment or service in the private sector. The one thing that distinguishes public service and public office is the capacity to reach right into people's lives. not disparaging private work at all, far from it. But it is the thing the key feature, in my view, that distinguishes being involved in public office, serving in public office, and serving as officers, advisors and staff than the private sector and other sectors. It's the public sector, public office and public service beyond the others, above and beyond the others, that has that capacity to fundamentally bring about change to communities, to shape them, and to achieve long-lasting improvements in the quality of lives of people. That's why I entered public office. I know that that's the motivation of the councillors here at Stratfield. I wish you all the best for the next 2 3/4 years until the next election, and know that be in very good hands with Henry and his excellent staff here at Stratfield. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Morris. Well, Morris, when you mentioned Canberra, I was thinking back in those days where I was desperate for help in relation to advocating for a childcare centre at Lane Cove. You delivered a brilliant result for the community of Lane Cove at Lane Cove West. Without it, Lane Cove wouldn't be the same. And in your politics, the colour of your politics was very, very different, but you transcend beyond that. And that's why I have such a lot of time and a privilege also knowing you. Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go through the formal proceedings now. Just need a minute or so just to reorganize the furniture here a little bit. So let me just do that. The legislature of New South Wales requires councillors to take the oath of office following an election. Until they take the oath of office, they are councillors-elect. The moment they swear in this morning, they will formally be councillor in their own right. And this morning, it's really my pleasure to swear them in as councillors. I, as the officiating person, has power under the Local Government Act to undertake this process. And this is a really formal process. And families and friends, I hope you could be patient while the proceedings go on. You will have the opportunity, I'm sure, either in your own homes or other places, or indeed making arrangements to come before this media or afterwards for your family shot. But we do have our lovely photographer here who knows exactly what to do to get the best shot of you. So councillors, when I invite you to come up, there are staff at the stairs to help you up, and we should have James on the other side, who disappeared, to help you down. So I'll begin the proceedings now. Ladies and gentlemen, congregation that's gathered here, I would like to call upon Councillor-elect Karen Therese Pennsylvania to come on the stage. Take this down. Let's give them to James.
fine. I know.
Welcome.
Thank you, Henry.
So good to see you
Good to
this
see you
morning.
too.
And returning too,
Yes,
after 2 days of bonding over the Monday, Tuesday.
it's
So
been
welcome.
amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I sway Karen, Therese, Pennsylvania in, I would just like to tell you that all of our newly elected councillors spend 2 days bonded with staff to go through the induction process. And this morning I will be handing out to them too the certification to say that you've done the work, because until that is done, you actually haven't completed the whole process. So if you just bear with us. Karen, you are actually swearing in through affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
I, Karen Therese Pennsylvania,
I, Karen Therese Pensabini,
solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm
solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm
that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
in the best interest of the people of Strathfield
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities, and discretions vested in me.
and I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities, and discretions vested in me
Under the Local Government Act 1993
under the Local Government Act 1993
and any other act to the best of my abilities and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Congratulations, Councillor.
Thank you.
Just one thing more to I need to be signed. Councillor Pennsylvania is signing her certificate of completion of induction program, which I have authorized, and also the oath of office. And I've pre-signed them so that I don't have to go through the process and delaying the process. And Councillor, if you might just exit stage right. Yep. Zoe will help you. Just be careful here. You right?
I'm good.
While the photographer gets into her place and do the official stuff, may I ask Councillor-elect Nella Hall to come to the stage, please. Thank you. Please repeat after me. I, Nella Hall,
I, Nella Hall,
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Strathfield,
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, duties, authorities, and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993.
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Councillor. January 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. That deserves a clap, don't you think? Thank you. May I now call upon Councillor-elect Kerry Senya Reddy to come onto the stage, please. So we brought her fan club today. Very, very good. Do you have your holy book? Okay. If you can just...
I've got my book.
So that they can see you. Just relax. I, Kerry Senya Reddy,
I, Kerry Sandhya Reddy,
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of the councillor
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
in the best interest of the people of the Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions,
powers, authorities, and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
powers, authorities, and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor. Oh, sorry. 12, yeah. Year 2022. It's okay. And this one here? That's your older boxes. Congratulations, Councillor. A big clap. Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. May I request the company of Councillor-elect Matthew Gary Blackmore. You did the affirmation, aren't you? Yep. Okay. I, Matthew Gary Blackmore,
I, Matthew Gary Blackmore,
solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm
solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm
that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993.
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability or judgment.
Congratulations, Councillor.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Councillor. May I request Councillor-elect Benjamin Chai to come to the stage, please. I, Benjamin Chai,
I, Benjamin Tai,
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
in the best interest of the people of Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully, impartially carry out the functions
and I will faithfully, impartially carry out the functions,
powers, authorities, and discretions
powers, authorities, and the discretions
vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
or other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
So help me God.
Thank you.
So help me God.
So help God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kai. Congratulations, Councillor. May I request Councillor-elect Raj Kumar Datta to come on the stage, please. Okay, if you can hold up your holy book. Yep, and face me, please. And face me, please. If you could, low so we can see you there. Okay, that's good. And face me directly. Thank you. Because I'm swearing you in. I, Raj Kumar Datta,
I, Raj Kumar Datta,
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of the councillor
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions,
powers, authorities,
authorities,
and discretion vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993,
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
To the best of my ability and judgment.
To the best of my ability and judgment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor. You could have signed here, dated here, and then signed it there. Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Datta. No, both of them. You take them to the photographer. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, may I request the company of Sharangan Maheswaran on the stage. I'm sorry?
I'll take the affirmation.
Okay. Now I got to go back because I've done, because this is all pre-prepared. So, just excuse us for a minute. I, Sharangan Maheswaran.
I, Sharangan Maheswaran.
I got that right.
That's right.
Solemnly and sincerely declare
Solemnly and sincerely declare
and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor
in the best interest of the people of Strathfield
in the best interests of the people of Strathfield
and the Strathfield Council,
and the Strathfield Council,
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993.
and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993
Or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Congratulations, Councillor.
Thank you, Henry.
There's nothing more nerve-wracking than a change of wording for a swearing-in ceremony, but he's allowed to do that.
I can now witness documents if I assume that's why you're all here.
Thank you. Oh, you've got to sign this. Thank you. There's a final piece that we need to perform this morning, and that is an act of commitment sworn in before you, the community of Strathfield. I, Henry Wong, being the person holding the position of Chief Executive of Strathfield Council, declare and commit myself and my staff to the task of diligently, faithfully, honestly, and impartially exercising the powers, authorities, duties, and functions of the Council, and implementing the lawful decisions of Council, and undertake to perform according to the best of my judgment and ability the statutory functions of General Manager, as well as such other functions of Council as may be delegated to me or conferred to me by legislation or imposed upon me, for so long as I hold the office of Chief Executive. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed is a group of elected people, may I also say very committed community representatives, to serve you faithfully, honestly, and impartially in their term. And I think it is also a requirement for the community to hold them up to those promises. And on your behalf, I would just like to congratulate all councillors for their success in reaching this civic office and for your service to the community of Strathfield over the next 2 years. I think in Morris Yemen's words, 3/4 years, 2 3/4 years. And the legacy that you will leave behind will be enduring, and for that I'm very certain. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should once again put our hands together and welcome our new councillors. This morning, without you knowing, someone very, very well known, and almost, I guess, a bit of a literary royalty, has been watching us via a camera just over there, waiting to come and address us. Because of COVID, our very own Thomas Keneally, Tom he would like to be called, cannot join us. But he's graciously accepted our invitation to address us via online. So when the curtain is drawn, if you could just draw the curtain for me, please. Did someone just flick the switch? It's not happening. Is there someone, is a phantom puller there, sir? Oh, good.
In my job of many, many years, I have the most humble privilege and humbling experience, so humbling experience, and the privilege of meeting all the people, the like Honorable Mark Jenner and others, who are truly community-centered, truly dedicated to their work, and they truly also. And
Those people I met as a result of being a council worker some 20 years ago. Tom will tell you his story, but not many people knew that Tom used to live down in Loftus Street in Homebush. And to tell you his story, I will leave that to Tom. But what I would like to say is that he is not only just not a renowned novelist, playwright, he's also an actor, as I understood it. But he is also an advocate of women issues. And I hope that he will address us a little bit about what he's currently doing. So over to you, Tom, and thank you for your company. And I hope that everyone is able to see him on the big screen behind me. Thank you.
Henry, you have my sound? Excellent. Okay. Well, it's a great honor to be with you all today in the old stamping ground. I remember this hall because we used to have dances with the Santa Sabina girls in there. So those raftery things there are holding up the roof are associated with romance for me. I grew up in Loftus Crescent, just beyond the railway line. We came down from the bush round about the time the war in the Pacific started. and we settled in an upstairs flat, which has now vanished. That whole street has vanished, except I see one garage, one plain lock-up garage. And the truth is that that's where we used to have our fights. When my father returned from the war, he thought my mother had made me too bookish, and he used to make me fight local boys there. He had this weird doomed Irish thing about him that believed you couldn't win in the end. The world would win, but if you got one good punch in, he said, if you get one good punch in, they'll remember it till they die. And I thought, is this worth getting the crap beaten out of me for? But that street is now going through a transformation. It's very interesting when your childhood home vanishes. It's quite a challenge. It's as if they're saying your imagination has just been cancelled. But I know it's all going to be high-rise down there by Loftus Crescent, which was all low-rise when I lived there. In 1942, I went to school across the road in St. Martin's, because it's interesting to reflect on that time. Most people still came from the British Isles. The Tesoriers and the Mangravitis of Parramatta Road were rare Italians. And the Greek cafe owners kept the baklava and all the good stuff out the back. They didn't try to sell it to us hillbillies. And across the road at St. Martha's, I spilled a lot of ink, was occasionally caned, until in 1943, I went to St. Pat's. Interesting time. It would have been so in any country involved in World War II, but a lot of the fathers were away. And a lot of them could die any moment. And so, and all you get was a telegram. The women of World War II, I think, were extraordinary. My mother gave birth to a child soon after my father left. And if they wanted to contact the Department of Defence, they had to take a tuppence down to the local phone on the corner of the street that runs up to the Horse and Jockey and the Vogue Cinema, and they'd make a call there. The endurance of the women of that time was astonishing to me in remembering. And I was very influenced by them without knowing it. My mother had a sister lived with us, and my father's sister lived with us. So I was rather in a household of women. I used to, is the sound okay, Henry?
Perfect.
Okay. I used to sit up at night listening to all the gossip about the Yanks and about there are a lot of Americans here. And there were two tank men who were courting my aunt. One of them ultimately married her. And they would come along to our place and whinge about the Americans on the normal grounds that they were overpaid. It wouldn't happen now. The economic rationalists have got control of the American army. But compared to our soldiers in those days, they were overpaid and they had too much pull with the girls. They had a mean trick. It was called good manners. It was, they called the girl Miss, and they'd call another man, and the father Mr. And this was uncharacteristically smooth, considered far too smooth and hypocritical in those days. Recently in Washington, I met some women who in those days fell for American servicemen and have lived all their life in America, and they still have their Queensland and Western Suburbs accent from those days. And our accent in those days was far thicker than it is now. And so the same streets that are the streets of adventure and of dreaming and of imagination to you were for me also. The nature of Australian society then was that it mainly came from the British Isles settlement, and the Irish were the crowd I belonged to were very much put down upon. I see very little difference between modern hostility to Muslims and the way we were suspected in those days. We were, to an extent, second-class citizens, but we're also, to an extent, guilty of withdrawing ourselves from the community in our own schools, in our own sporting clubs, and so on. Indeed, we were a continuation in white Australia. We were a continuation of all the problems of Ireland, of all the problems of Ulster. And all that vanished. Nowadays, feminists justly say that old codgers like me, Anglo-Celtic, I don't know whether I have to put the Anglo bit first, but Celtic-Anglican, let's say, that we're the problem, the patriarchy. And it's right. And I'm glad that the women councillors have got elected despite the problems and the roadblocks we've presented to the advance of women. I know that in my day, little girls were told to be sweet, you know, and that's not always their nature. In the bush we came from, up near Kempsey, the Macleay Valley, girls obeyed their mothers when their mother said before their marriage, get all the teeth out, and then your husband will never have to pay a dental. So the toothless bride was a standard woman in our valley, in the Macleay Valley in those days. As well as that, grandmothers said, don't speak up at table, dear. Men don't like talk with women. Men don't like women with ideas, basically. So I'm pleased that that world has gone, that the advance of 51% of our population is undeniable. And I am as interested as anyone in that I have two strong granddaughters who were encouraged to be strong. And I'm glad a number of you have been strong enough to penetrate Strathfield Council. And I hope you all have a happy and creative time. Once upon a time, I used to belong to the Constitutional Advisory Committee with Peter Garrett. He used to go around a small ball, and he was a tall ball man, and interviewing Australians about what they wanted in the Constitution. And local government is not in the Constitution, and it should be, but it's never. There was an unsuccessful referendum on that issue, but it should be, because some would say the powers of the planning minister and others over councils is potentially sweeping and extempore, decided on the second, and no mechanisms for appeal. And so some thought that it would upgrade the status of local government if it were in the Constitution itself. It is, after all, a crucial part of the way we all live. My father was away for 3 years, as many were. And I can remember a day when the nuns across the road, they had an aircraft carrier under the high altar of, an aircraft shelter, not carrier, under the high altar of St. Patrick's, because they believed God would never let the high altar be bombed. And we were very scared in that first year after the fall of Singapore. So there were many days when we had air raid. The air raid siren outside Strathfield Town Hall would go off. And we would go into this damp, dark, low-roof place. Thank God we weren't bombed, because we each had a little linen bag with 2 halves of a tennis ball to put over our ears, a mouth plug to put in, a roll of bandages, a whistle, and a tin of burn. And we would sit there. The nuns would say, put the halves of tennis ball over your ears, and then we would sing Irish hymns like Hail Glorious St. Patrick, and the line, on Erin's green valleys look down on my love. And so one day my mother came for me just as we were getting in, and a remarkable fly, his name is a Japanese fly, his name is Nabua Fujita, and he was an NCO on a huge submarine off the coast of Sydney. And on that day, he flew that aircraft at 500 feet, launched from a submarine at 500 feet over Sydney, and wasn't shot down. But we thought he was involved in a bombing raid. And so my mother and I went home down Homebush Road. Homebush Road totally deserted, all the way to the railway line, turn left, and then under the overpass into Loftus Creek. And we got home without having a personal encounter anyhow with Chief Petty Officer Nabua Fujita. He later, that man who flew over Homebush that last Friday of May 1942, he later started a forest fire in Oregon. It was an extraordinary fire. He flew from his submarine over Oregon in the US and dropped incendiaries to start a forest fire. And he would probably be dead now, but he's part of the history of Homebush. And so are my mother and I walking towards shelter in Homebush. Now, my mother was a girl from the bush, from Kempsey. She had my latest novel is dedicated to the 2 of them, the old man, Tom Keneally, and my mother. And she was very driven towards books. She was the one who drove me towards books. Homebush in those days wasn't a very entertaining place. And so if we ever said, I'm bored, Mum, she would say, but you have a book. A child with a book, was her saying, a child with a book is never bored. And therefore, it became easier to get good report cards than to get bad ones. And I know that many of you are immigrants and you have dreams for your children. And it's not necessarily bad to have a mother who knows you're only going around once. You've got one go at this world. one chance, if you like, to get out of Loftus Crescent, and that is to excel at exams. I found during my time teaching at NYU and University of California that the toughest parents were not it wasn't the Chinese mothers who reminded me of my mother. It was the Chinese American mothers. It was the Korean American mothers who were most like my mother and who drove us on to glory. May I drop into the pot of distinguished Australians who lived in Homebush, my little brother, Johnny. Johnny became a doctor at and got into letters at Great Ormond Street in London. He was an anaesthetist and a palliative care specialist. He was head of anaesthesia at the Children's Hospital. He was had the International Medal of the International Society of Anaesthetists. He was served on the International Committee. He published many articles on analgesia and burns in children, and he also published a lot about straight analgesia, but also about the trauma of having an operation, the trauma that having an operation can be for a kid. He published a great deal about that. The whole theatre team under him to sing Bananas in Pajamas had to know the word to put the kids at ease. And he died too young of prostate. He was a recipient of the Australian medal, and he died in his late 60s, still editing the annual called Australasian Anesthesiology. And he was a formidable human being and very much made by my mother, who wanted a doctor in the family. And as many immigrants do, it's their dream to have a doctor in the family, and I do not see that as necessarily a malign ambition. I think it's a good ambition, as long as you realize some of them will want to be musicians and artists of various kinds as well. I think I've said nearly everything, Henry, in acknowledging this fine bunch, as good a collection of Celtic, subcontinental, and Italian names as you can get. But before I go off, could I compliment you on your library? And say, naturally, I'd be a friend of libraries, but we didn't have one when we were kids. We used to go to a little shop around near Parramatta Road where you could hire books encased in seal skin covers, and it was a penny a week, I think, to rent a book, which is fine. We could afford that, but the selection of books was very small, and there was no access to the world as the student has above all at your library, because you've signed into all the journals, all the books they need to consult in researching a particular subject. They can have access to international journals. The learning at a level of sophistication that was totally beyond that when I did the Living Certificate in 1952. I think libraries are one of the noblest of local government. And yet there are always men and women who say, we can't quite afford that. And I'd like to read you something that Robert Kennedy, another good Irishman, said before his assassination, he was standing for the US presidency, and he went to University of Kansas, and gave a commencement address in which he said about gross domestic product. The man who came up with gross domestic product, the economist, said it must not be a stick for governments to beat each other over. John F. Kennedy said, the gross product, like so many economic indicators, does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their life, or the joy of their play. It does not include the beauty of our poetry or the strength of our mind, the intelligence of our public debate, or the integrity of our public officials like you. Your integrity will be a wealth, a huge asset to Strathfield, but it's not economically, always economically measured. It has nothing, says nothing about the intelligence of our public debate or the integrity of our public officials. It measures neither out, nor our courage, nor our wisdom, nor our learning, neither our compassion, nor our devotion to our country. It measures everything, in short, except what makes life worthwhile. There's an economic fashion to downgrade library and maybe swimming pools to an extent, because you can't put a measure on the good they do. But you know they make life worthwhile, and may you be able to look after the Strathfield Library as well as the rest of the place. Thank you, Henry.
Well, thank you. Thank you, the great. Thank Mr. Tom Conneely. To move a vote of thanks to both of our speakers today. I know Morris is retired to the back. May I invite Mr. Houghton to come forward and say a few words, please.
Thank you, Henry. Hi, everyone. My name's Anthony Houghton. I'm the General Manager of People, Place and Civic Services. Tom, I've actually met you before several times. I used to look after the Warringah Library Service, and my staff would always be most excited when you came to our DY branch, going back 20 years or so. As most people would know, Tom is an internationally acclaimed Australian author. And I think one of the wonderful things about your books, Tom, is that you get people to explore issues that they might not feel necessarily comfortable at the beginning, but you get us to think about things by the way you tell the story. And I think that's always been the hallmark of a lot of your novels. So thank you for your wonderful take on some of the history as you were growing up in Strathfield. I currently just live quite close to where you are talking about, and yes, it's a very different place today, isn't it? And so I would share Henry's thoughts. We would love to have you to get a bit of an oral history, because with our wonderful new library at Homebush that this council has invested money in over the last term, we now have an increased emphasis on keeping local history. And Strathfield is such an amazing place. It has such heritage, which both of our speakers referred to today, Morris as well. And so that's wonderful. So thank you very much for sharing your past and your thoughts with us today. Thank you, Tom. Morris, I've always been a fan of yours. It was wonderful that you could come today. I know you're a very busy person. I think, and thank you for sharing your insights with us about your thoughts on local government. Sometimes we do think like with the other tier of government that that is forgotten about a bit, but I really like the passion that you had about how we can make a difference, and I think that's something that our councillors will take away today. And as a small token of our appreciation, because essentially you're not in public life anymore, right? We would like to give you this beautiful orchid. So thank you very much, Morris. If everyone could give Morris a hand. Thank you. Okay, I'll hand back over to Henry. Thanks, everyone.
We're going to conclude with the national anthem. You may be seated for the purposes of COVID. So, Mr. Sound Guy, would you mind? Well, maybe we all should stand up for the national anthem. Thank you very much. You may be seated. The Honourable Morris Yama, if you need to leave, we fully understand that. And we really want to thank you for your time. Thank you. We'll catch up at another time. Okay. We are going to move into a council meeting, an extraordinary meeting of council, at which the new mayor of Strathfield, and the deputy mayor of Strathfield will be elected. There's only one other item of business following that. And after that, we conclude, and then, of course, anyone who wants to have a photo with your favourite councillor or councillors may join them or at the media wall. So give us a couple of minutes. And, of course, before you depart, we were going to have some refreshments by just on the hall floor. But because of COVID, we can't do that. So we have prepared a special takeaway bag for every one of you. I think they're all dietarily appropriate. And just mention that to our wonderful staff at the back as you leave. And you may take a bag with you, and then you can party on the lawns outside or in the park somewhere. So just give us a couple of minutes. And once again, on behalf of our newly elected councillors, all 7 of them, I would just like to thank you all for this morning's presence. It is important that the public is present on this occasion, because it is you that they will serve over the next 2 years and 9 months. Just so the inauguration ceremony is finished, and I would like to thank David. David, if you need to leave, we understand that. And the formal proceedings of the ceremony is now concludes. So we're just going to move into the council part of it now. So. Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't finished today's proceedings, so if you would like to be observers for the next part of it, which will start in a minute or two. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request you to just keep your conversations quieter, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to be quiet, please? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your name, please.
You did have councillor on it.
It's okay, everyone knows who I am.
There it is. Are we allowed to take our masks off?
It's the optics of it. Sorry.
Sorry, no?
Well, I think if you want to just keep one on, I think that's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID safety rules still apply. So may I ask you not to mingle, please? It is important that we observe those rules, otherwise we will be in a bit of bother. Particularly with social media and other forms of online platforms. I think it's important that we all maintain social distancing. I know there's a couple of familiar faces. Good afternoon. Good. I'm officiating the next part until a mayor is elected. So I declare that the extraordinary meeting of council of the 12th of January 2022 open. The order of business is published on the agendas. Miss, would you mind taking a seat, please? Thank you. Any apologies? No? Okay. But before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that we are meeting on what is and always will be Aboriginal land and pay respects to the elders past and present. Thank you. No apologies, all present. Can the minutes reflect that all councillors are present? Mr. David McHugh is the minute taker. Declaration of interests. Any declarations of interest? All right, would the records also show that there are no declarations of interest by affirmation or the nod? General business, corporate services report 1. Mayoral and deputy mayoral election. Councillors, I need to I assume that you're familiar with the procedure. If you're not, then perhaps you can just raise your hand now. For the benefits of the new councillors, if you have any questions at this juncture, I'm happy to take any of them. Essentially, I would like to ask you whether you would like to elect the mayor and deputy mayor by open voting. Those who would like to elect the mayor by open voting, which is a show of hands, please raise your hand. Okay, so by not raising your hand, it means you would like to have it held by secret ballot. Those who would like to conduct the election by open voting, please raise your hand. May I see your indication, please? So I have Councillor Chai, Councillor Hall, Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Reddy, Councillor Pennsylvania, Councillor Data, and Councillor Mahas Warren. Thank you. Can the record show that all is in agreement? It was unanimous. Normally we would do this contemporaneously, but because of the format is different, so we're going to do this differently. So by voting to elect your mayor by open voting, I'm your returning officer. So the procedure is I will read out the names of the nominee in the order in which I received them. So the first role is
Henry,
the role
before you
of
begin,
the mayor.
Can I withdraw my nomination for mayor, please?
I'm sorry. Let me just finish it. And the procedure is fairly straightforward. There was a question whether we can withdraw. You could have withdrawn earlier. I've already started the process. I'm sorry. Therefore, the process is I will read out the nominations, and then I will put each nominee to the vote. Okay. So I'm going to read out the nominations in the order in which I received them. The first nomination received was from Councillor Matthew Blackmore, nominated by Councillor Sandy Reddy. The second person I received nomination for was for Councillor Karen Pennsylvania, nominated by Sharangan Mariswaran. The third nomination I received was for Councillor Naylor Hall, nominated by Councillor Matthew Blackmore and Councillor Benjamin Chai. The other two nominations were nominated by one additional person other than themselves. So, ladies, councillors, I will put the vote to you in the order in which I received them. Those who support Councillor Matthew Blackmore for the position of Mayor for the period of 2022 from now to September 2023, please raise your hand. Thank you. Can I just read the names out? Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Reddy, Councillor Pennsylvania, Councillor Datta, and Councillor Maheswaran. That being the majority, I congratulate you on your election to the position. Councillor Blackmore, may I bestow upon you the mayoral chain, please?
Looks like what we signed didn't count for anything.
You want to go to the media wall for a minute? I give you the Mayor of Strathfield, Councillor Blackmore. I'm still the returning officer, so I still have the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen and councillors, I would like to put to you the question of whether you would like to elect your deputy mayor for, firstly, the term of the mayor, which is to September of 2022, or for a shorter term. And before that, I would like to ask you whether you want to choose your deputy mayor by open voting or by secret ballot. The first question first. Would you like to elect your deputy mayor by open voting? Please show a hand. Thank you. Presumably, Councillor Chai, you are against it by open voting. Let me put the question again. Those councillors who support the election of the deputy mayor by open voting, that's a show of hands. Please raise your hand. Thank you. Unanimous, please. And those who would support the term of the deputy mayor being the same term as the mayor, which is to September 2023. Please raise your hand. Okay, well, that's 4. Can I be a bit more certain, please? My apology. Those who support the mayoral term, the deputy mayoral term to be the same as the mayor's term, please raise your hand. Those who are against? There are 2 against, Councillor Chai and Councillor Hall. Is that right? Yes. So can the record show that Councillor Reedy, Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Pensabeni, and Councillor Data, and Councillor Mahaswaran, got that right again, indicating support for the it's in the affirmative, and Councillor Nella Hall, Councillor Benjamin Chai was in the negative, which is in the opposition. Okay, good. The yea was in the majority, so I will put the vote to you by open voting. Again, I will read out the nominations in the order in which they were received. Just reading out nominations before the voting so that everybody knows who the candidates are. For the position of Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sarangan Mariswaran, nominated by Councillor Pensabeni and Councillor Mariswaran. Thank you. Councillor Benjamin Chai, nominated by Councillor Nella Hall and Councillor Matthew Blackmore. And Councillor Pensabeni, nominated by Councillor Mariswaran and Councillor Pensabeni. So I'll put the vote to the councillors. Those who support Councillor Mariswaran for the term of Deputy Mayor in the period between 2022, January, to September 2023, please raise your hand. Can the record show there were no hands on? Oh. Was there a problem? Oh, good. Okay, good. I thought I'd done something wrong. Those who support Councillor Benjamin Chai for the deputy term, please raise your hand. We've got Councillor Benjamin Chai and Councillor Nella Hall. Those who support Councillor Karen Pensabeni for the deputy mayoral term of January to September 2023, please raise your hand. Councillor Reddy, Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Pensabeni, Councillor Data, and Councillor Mariswaran. Can the record show that, please? Thank you and congratulations to the new office holders. Mr. Mayor, would you take the chair? Thank you. There's one item to transact.
Method. CS2, method to fill casual vacancies. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Pensabeni, seconder. Councillor Reddy. Recommendation.
One is for town back, the other one by election. And the total ones are in there. May I make a executive recommendation to you?
Yep.
I would recommend that if a casual vacancy comes up in the next 18 months, that we do the town back. It is cost efficient and also respect the democratic process that took place on the 4th of December this year. That's my recommendation. You can vote whatever you like.
Okay, so we have 2 recommendations. I will. Sorry, you're the mover, Karen. Yeah. What are you moving?
Yes, so I move that the council decide to have a by-election for the vote on this request. I believe it's important that we keep our democracy and we have our residents they want to come and fill in that spot. So I recommend to the council that a by-election should be held.
Okay. Is there any further debate on the matter? Councillors, so I move the recommendation that any casual vacancy which occur in the office of a councillor for this term will be filled through the holding of a by-election. All those in favour? Against? So Councillor Hall, Councillor Kai. I move the recommendation carried. Thank you. That's it, Henry? Yeah. So, pardon? Sorry guys, my first time. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I declare the meeting closed at 12:51 p.m. And if you can give me a bit of indulgence, myself and the Deputy Mayor would like to say something.
Another member also, I think it might be appropriate for other members as well if they want to speak as well. If that's okay, Mr. Mayor?
That's fine, the meeting's closed. Yeah. So I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I wish to congratulate my council colleagues on their recent election and inauguration to one of the most culturally diverse communities in Sydney. I wish to thank my colleagues who have supported me to lead as Mayor, the first council team that I believe truly represents that community. I would like to congratulate Councillor Karen Pensabini, who will be leading this council with me as Deputy Mayor. Karen is a person who always has the best interests of our community at heart, and I have seen firsthand that she is a person of honesty and integrity. Strathfield Independents and Labor collectively achieved 70% of the vote at the recent council election. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call a mandate. By forming this strong team with like-minded councillors, we are delivering what the community wants and what they voted for. I will be transparent with the community that after my term as Mayor, I will be supporting a Labor Mayor for the duration of the council term. A few people I would like to thank: my wife Lillian, for your support and allowing me to take time away from our family to serve our community. Sue McDonald, you told me in October 2017 that if we followed your plan, that we would get 2 councillors elected, and we did. Mum, Adam and Simone, thank you for believing in me. My fellow Strathfield Independents election team, your hard work paid off and I am very grateful. Okay, and lastly but definitely not least, my Strathfield Independents council colleague, Sandy Reddy. I'm so happy that you got elected. Sandy, Carrie, their family, friends, and the entire Reddy election team, we wouldn't have done this without you. The entire community has put their trust in this new leadership team, and I want to ensure you that we'll be living by one motto: community first, community second, and community last. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, everyone, or is it afternoon? Good afternoon, everyone. I also wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging. It is fitting today that we pay our respect to the original owners of the Strathfield local government area, and today we have come together as the newly elected councillors to respect and represent the current residents, of whom over 63% speak another language in their home and come from a multitude of diverse cultures. And yet proudly, they call Strathfield their home. As Mayor Blackmore, did you like that? As Mayor Blackmore stated in his acceptance speech, in December, the people of Strathfield allocated nearly 70% of their total votes to Strathfield Labor and Strathfield Independents, and this is a clear and decisive message that from basically 7 out of 10 people who voted in this election want changes and improvements in our local government. Both Labor and Strathfield Independents thank the 69% of people who voted for us, but equally, I can say to the remaining 31% of Strathfield people that this entire council is here to do what is right and proper for the 100% of our local constituents. We have a collective duty of care and we have an obligation not to fail you. I congratulate Mayor Blackmore on his being elected today, and I know that you and I will be a great team, and I also feel very privileged to accept the role as Deputy Mayor. I would also like to congratulate Strathfield Labor team, Councillor Sharangan Maheswaran and Councillor Raj Datta, Strathfield Independent, Councillor Sandy Reddy, Independents Councillor Nella Hall and Ben Chai on being inaugurated today. The role of councillor is a great honour and we are here to serve the people for Strathfield. I know both Labor and Strathfield Independents are aligned in understanding what the people from Strathfield want from their councillors, and we will endeavour to work closely and cooperatively with every councillor present today to address both the strategic issues and the daily problems impacting our local government area. To my family, friends, and my Strathfield family, who most of you are here today, may I say a very, very huge thank you. It was an amazing campaign and we made history in Strathfield, and it's the first time since 2003 that we have a majority of Labor councillors on Strathfield, and I think that we should be very proud of that. And I also know that the wave for Labor is building more momentum every day. To my personal family, Julia, I hope you're watching from London. I love you. To the former councillor Marianne Duggan, I miss you, but thank you for your undying support and the work that we have achieved over the last 4 years. And to Tony, her husband, thank you for looking after all the money. Thank you so much, because that's very important in a campaign. And finally, to my husband, Tony, thank you. Thank you for putting up with me and this crazy life as a councillor, because I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it is crazy sometimes. May I conclude by acknowledging that whilst councillors come and go with each election, it is the 200 plus Strathfield Council employees who are here today as well, and that are the strength of Strathfield, making our local government area one where so many people simply just want to live and come here. Again, thank you for the privilege to represent our community, and I know that we won't let you down. Thank you so much.